Hello again. Today, kind of like my last video, kind of went over how I bought a GHK gas blowback rifle to kind of mimic my regular AR-15. At that same time, I also purchased a KJW 1911 single stack. Kind of similar idea there. Kind of mimic what I have as my full-size carry weapon, so I could get practice out here in the garage. Once again, same thing. It's definitely not going to have the same blowback, but it kind of helps you work on the fundamentals of everything, and I can practice doing mag changes and everything else. So far, I've had this one a little bit longer than the M4 that I got, but so far, this one's also been pretty reliable compared to the other one. The only thing that I've really ran into it so far as use, these magazines suck. Being a single stack, and I've heard it's because it is a single stack mag and they can't hold a lot of gas, you're not getting through all the rounds you could physically put in this. I think these can hold like 28 or 31 rounds. For me, I wasn't as concerned about it because this one, my real 1911, it only holds 8. So for me, once again, for my purposes, it works just fine. I'm just going to be pretty much loading 8 up in the air unless I'm going to go to an airsoft event, which I said in the last video I'm planning on probably doing here in the future. I think it'd be good practice, just kind of go out and it'd just be a lot of fun. Really want to go. With my last airsoft guns, is typically me and the kids just messing around the property we had, just having fun, but I want to really get into it compared to the way I was last time. Fit and finish wise, compared to the GHK M4 I just got, it's all metal like the M4 was, but you can just tell it's a lot cheaper. It's definitely a lot cheaper. Don't have a lot of experience with other gas blowback pistols, but comparatively, you can tell the slide's cheaper. I'm assuming it's probably made out of some sort of aluminum. The frame's aluminum, where the GHK that I have up there on the wall, it's also aluminum, but it feels like an actual AR receiver, where this it feels cheap. It's at least metal, still feels realistic. The trigger's not bad. It's not bad compared to my actual 1911, which, I mean, you can't beat it. You're not going to get that realistic. I haven't looked into if you can actually take the main spring housing off the back here. I'm sure you could probably. Most of these airsoft guns I've seen are modeled pretty realistically compared to the actual firearm. So far, the most I've taken apart the slide and the guide spring and all that out, and it's all very similar to the actual real steel counterpart. Weight-wise, they're about the same. This one is not a full size. The only way I could have gotten a shorter one is I would have gotten like a high cap version of this, which then would have had the double stack mags, which I didn't want just due to the kind of training purposes for where I was getting it for. So that's kind of a little bit of a bummer. Overall, when you're shooting it, it's not too much different as far as the sight radius. I know being longer would help out a little bit more, but overall, the feel, just holding it in your hands compared to, I mean, it's the exact same. The safety function's the same, up and down. This one does come with a ambidextrous safety. It moves smoothly. My actual real steel counterpart just has a one-sided thumb safety, but I'm right-handed, so it doesn't really matter to me. It does shoot well. This was also on the cheaper side. It was more of a budget one when I bought this. The M4 that I bought was definitely way more expensive, but I can't even remember how much I paid for this, but you can look it up on eBike. That's where I bought it from. But as far as all that goes, it checks all the boxes for me when I got it. single stack mags, everything's very similar. It functions the same. Last round hole open. Similar trigger. It's definitely not as good, but I figure if I can get to the point that I fire this thing decent, I'll be able to definitely fire that one better as far as the trigger squeeze goes. The blowback to me honestly seems kind of weak. I haven't fired a lot of blowback pistols. I was expecting more. But it's still overall good. It'll get you off target just barely. To me, it's kind of like firing a 22. If you were to probably do a 22 conversion on a full-size 1911, I mean, it's probably going to be maybe that level of recoil. Probably not even that much. But as far as plinking out here in the garage, it does a decent job. For me, it's more kind of working on pulling out of the holster, working on flipping off the safety, getting on target, and firing some rounds. And you'll get some feedback on the paper. I'll typically stand maybe 10 feet off, practice that way. The only time I'm going to be using my probably actual firearm is going to be pretty close up situation. So I haven't been too concerned with range, but once the weather gets better, I'll take it out. We'll see how far it can go. I think this one has an adjustable hop up. I'll find out for sure once I actually start trying to fire it further ranges here in the coming days or weeks. Next time we get a nice day and I can actually set up some targets outside further. We'll see. We'll see how it goes, but so far my experience has been pretty good with it. Once again, I haven't had any issues with it so far, other than the gas consumption. Before I started using a heating pad to keep the mags warm, I would maybe get 8 shots through it. I mean, that's just kind of the way it is. From what I've read online, these magazines can't hold a lot of gas because they are very slim, but I was kind of going for the more realism with my actual firearm, so I wasn't too concerned about that because I'm probably only going to put 8 on there. I have read other reports from people saying that they can only get 14. At one point, a couple days ago, I did actually get these mags like really warm, probably 100 degrees-ish, using the heating pad, and it actually, I think, went through all the rounds fine, but it was struggling there at the end. So if it's warm enough, I'm sure it can get through more. If you're an airsoft player and it's not summertime, I don't see this being probably the best option for you. Unless you want the realism, and if you're only worried about putting 8 rounds in this thing, then you're probably good to go even when it gets cold out. But if you're real serious about airsoft, probably not going to work out. I do believe they sell CO2 mags. As you can see, it's cut out down here. CO2 would probably be a better option. I might buy a couple CO2 mags just to try it to see if it's better. But for right now, just me shooting in my garage, it's been fine and very comparable to just the real firearm as far as kind of just the grip and the feel, the controls, the safety. It's been good for that. And it's functioned fine. It has functioned fine. It's just, to me, it just feels cheap. That's the thing. I know it was probably only like just over $100 pistol, but just cheap compared to some of the other firearms. I'm sure there's better ones out there. I'm sure if you change the slide out on this to an aftermarket one, that would probably help some. But it's smooth. It functions smooth. I don't have any issues with it there. It just feels kind of cheap, and that's about the extent of it. It's still plenty fine functioning pistol. Just gas consumption sucks. So that'd be my own thing. As far as a training aid, I'd say it's worth it, especially for how cheap it is. The mags are pretty cheap. I think I bought some Matrix mags. This is the one that it came with. They all seem to function about the same. So as far as cheapness wise and just affordability, it's not a bad weapon. I'd probably rate it higher just because of that. But if you're looking for something like more realistic, I don't know what brand you would probably go with, but probably not this. It'll get you by. Especially if you're just kind of wanting to try it out. Maybe you have a 1911 and you're kind of like, oh, that might be interesting to kind of have one I can shoot at the house and then I have to go to a range or something. Especially up close, the accuracy is going to be fine. it'll still fire out. I'm assuming this thing probably fires about 300 feet per second. It'll punch holes in paper. It'll be accurate enough for up close target shooting to kind of get some practice on. But definitely, if you're kind of going for the more realistic, I'd maybe look into a higher end model. Or if you're worried about the gas consumption, find a different brand. Maybe do some reviews. I know the TMs are better. I think they come with a plastic slide though. I don't know how well they do after switching to a metal slide. I've done a little bit of research on it. Like I said, I'm not really the most high-speed airsofter out there ever. I've dabbled in it enough to at least make this purchase. And so far, overall, I'm still happy with it. Just saying it could be better, but I got what I paid for. So with that, we'll put some rounds through it. As you can see, these are the same targets I had up from the last video with the M4, but had one flyer there, but overall still pretty centered. Same thing. Didn't put up new targets, but as far as I can tell, had one up flyer up there. But it's a good training aid. It'll tell you pretty quick, but it allows you kind of sit in here, run through some mags, do some drills, fire quick, in a relatively safe way without blowing through a whole bunch of ammo. Overall, I wish the gun probably was better, but for my purposes, it'll be fine. If I end up getting really into actually airsoft, I know there's a couple matches coming up in January around my area. I'm sure I'll probably get there, and if I end up using the pistol at all, I'm sure it's going to do horrible out there. But overall, I'm just getting into it though, but once we see how it goes, we'll go from there. I'm sure as time goes on, I'll end up having a couple more, and I'll review those also. I might not have an actual gun to kind of compare it to, but as I get more experience with it, I'll at least be able to base it off those two. But that's about it as far as the accuracy.